Today's scripture reading brings us to 1 Samuel chapter 5. 1 Samuel chapter 5 is a very short chapter, only 12 verses, and it's an interesting chapter, to say the least. At this point in the history of the children of Israel, they had sinned against God, and God had allowed the Ark of the Covenant to be taken by the Philistines, but they find out that this is no ordinary God, and the ark is not God, but it's representative of God, certainly in the eyes of the Philistines. Unfortunately, it was in the eyes of the Israelites. That's why the Philistines got it in the first place. But I have this title just one section, and I titled it "Burn, Baby, Burn," and for reasons you should understand here in a moment. At this point in time, the Philistines have taken the Ark of God, and they've taken it back to Ashdod, which was a city there of the Philistines. They put it in the house of Dagon. Dagon was a false god that the Philistines worshipped. I don't remember exactly what it looked like. I want to say it had a head of a dragon, had a couple arms, and maybe the tail of a mermaid. I don't remember that. That could be right, and it could not be. It's a false god, and so I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it when I've studied it before. I just knew it wasn't God. And as you see in this chapter, it could not stand up to our God. And so, in verse number 3, can you imagine this? They take the Ark of the Covenant there, and they place it in the house of Dagon. They go to bed, and they come back the next day, and Dagon's statue has fallen over, bowed before the throne of God. And can you imagine walking into that scene, being a worshiper of Dagon, going through verse number 3, and when they of Ashdod arose early in the morrow, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the earth before the ark of the Lord, and they took Dagon and they set him in his place again. Can you imagine him setting their God back up and say, oh, listen, you're embarrassing us in front of the ark of the Jews. So they stand Dagon back up again. They go to bed that night. They come the next day, and Dagon's not only fallen over, his stump's laying over, and his hands have broken off, his head's broken off before the Lord. And then in verse number 5 is, therefore the priests of Dagon, not any coming to Dagon's house, tread on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod unto this day, and that's because it was cut off upon the threshold. Now, I don't know exactly why that threshold became so holy. I don't know if they saw it as, they attributed the act unto the ark of God, because they would send it off because of what it did unto Dagon. It says there in verse number 7, the ark of God of Israel shall not abide with us, for his hand is sore upon us and upon Dagon our God. So they understood that the act of Dagon falling over and busting to pieces was caused by the ark of God, but then they held this threshold in some high regard. How foolish. I just don't understand that. And then they, tried to send Dagon off to other cities, and the plagues would follow them. And we see in verse number 6, you see the first mention of emerods. It's an interesting word. But the hand of the Lord was heavy upon them of Ashdod, and he destroyed them and smote them with emerods, even Ashdod and the coast thereof. And we see emerods again, verse number 9. And they had emerods in their secret parts. And verse number 12, and the men that died were smitten with the emerods, and the cry of the city went up to heaven. Now, depending on where you read, emerods are either tumors on, like, maybe your genitals, or they're hemorrhoids in your, and so that's why this is titled Burn, Baby, Burn, because they was feeling the fire in some form or fashion. God made it very uncomfortable for those of Ashdod and Gath and Ekron, wherever the ark went. God was bringing judgment upon them. So we see that I'm not even going to say this. I wrote something down and I'm not going to say it. They started playing hot potato with the ark of God. They sent it from Ashdod into Gath into Ekron. And so I'm going to leave it there. If you really want to know, you can ask me later and I'll tell you. But that's it. So we don't see the result of what happens until the next chapter. We'll be in the next video and you'll see what they ended up doing with the Ark of God. We're just kind of caught in the middle of the story here. So we'll continue this tomorrow, Lord willing. We'll see you then.